this next podcast is going to be kind of a pain in the ass.
Well, actually, you're being the pain in the ass because you're not available. Let's be honest.
I mean, you guys can record without me. It's just not going to be sexy or fun.
How dare you?
I appreciate the
really
self-confidence, Joe.
Well, no,
you don't follow
actually,
the Twitter.
No, actually on Twitter, somebody said Joe's voice is sexy. And guess whose head that's gone to? Guess who's taking it and running with it? Yeah. Joe. Joe's like, oh, I'm the sexy funny one. I'm the sexy funny one now. And then like Shaheen's the deep one. And then I'm just like, I run things kind of.
I thought you were the professional one.
I suppose. I'm the professional one. Where I like
except for the
admit to like staring at boobs and swear all the time.
Except for the scotch.
Like, why can't I be this? What? I realize that my voice isn't sexy. I mean, I can like try to make it lower and then try to be sexy like I'm doing now. Is it working?
Not really.
And there's crickets.
I've been told that my voice is sexy.
You also think you don't have an accent.
I don't have an accent.
Hey,
I don't know. I would
actually,
say that
we will
Shaheen
ask
definitely
people.
Has like a nice voice. Like
we will ask people on Reddit. Do you think Shaheen's voice is sexy? That should be simple enough for people to answer.
Yeah. Except, I mean, no one's going to say no.
I'm just gonna like just poke you and Shaheen just today. Like I'm just feeling a little nudgy.
Are you feeling a little cheeky today?
I'm spicy.
All right, well, let's start talking about the 100 then, if you're feeling so saucy. We're talking about the 100. This is episode 5 of May We Geek Again. We are diving into season 2, episodes 1 through 4. My name is Jennifer, and I'm joined by my co-hosts, Shaheen and Cheeky Joe.
Ooh, I like
guys.
that.
Hey, everybody, what up? What up? So, welcome back, everybody. Thanks for listening. I just want to remind our listeners. Well, first of all, I want to give a shout out to our listeners. I want to thank everybody who's engaging us on Reddit and Twitter and Facebook. Those of you guys who are listening to us, really appreciate the following that we're getting. I appreciate your thoughts and comments, and spending some time with us, an hour and a half or so every 2 weeks. I really love talking about this show with my two friends here, and I love the fact that people are jamming a little bit on our podcast. So thanks, guys, for listening. Truly appreciate it. And as a little incentive for everybody, I want to announce that we are going to do a Season 3 DVD giveaway. That's right, everybody. The Season 3 DVD is coming out on Tuesday, I believe, and it's got a bunch of bonus features on the DVD, such as, I believe, outtakes, deleted scenes, the 2015 San Diego Comic-Con 100 panel that they held last year. So it's a pretty cool DVD set. And how we're going to do this giveaway is basically look for us on Twitter. You'll find that the giveaway tweets. All you have to do is follow us on Twitter and retweet the tweets that we send out. They'll be pretty obvious because they will say in the graphic, retweet and follow us for a chance to win the Season 300 DVD. So excited to offer that to you guys. We're going to have that little contest up for 2 weeks. So basically 2 Sundays from now will be the closing of that opportunity. And once we have all of the names, Twitter handles of people, I will do a random number generator to find out who is the Grand Prize winner. So look for that on the Twitters. So I also have, so it would be nice if I actually mentioned our social media stuff as I announce that promotion that's going to be on social media. So you can find us on Twitter at May We Geek Again, and also on Facebook at May We Geek Again. It's fairly simple to find us there. You can find me at Cool Hand Luquette on Twitters, and on my blog is DeclareShenanigans.com, where I do 100 reviews and talk about some other things on the TVs. So that's it for that little promotion. How you guys feeling this week about about the podcast? You guys excited to record again?
I just peed a little, but that's it's also just Sunday afternoon, so
Out of excitement, or you're just announcing that you went to the bathroom?
A and B, always.
That's
right.
great. That just might become a recurring theme on our podcast since we ended episode 4 with that last week. That was really lovely of you, Joe.
No problem.
So I have a little apology to give out. So in a discussion throughout on Reddit about our season, or about our episode 4, Bubbles called me out about my Bellamy fangirl comment. And I apologize for that because I said it in a derisive fashion. And here's the deal. I spend a lot of time on social media, and this is my first foray into any sort of fandom whatsoever when it comes to entertainment. And there are parts of this fandom that are pure cancer. There are parts of every fandom that's pure cancer. And it tends to get me down a little bit, and I sometimes let that color my attitudes and my mood. And unfortunately, it's I should be smart enough and mature enough to realize that there are 99% of the Bellamy fandom out there is rational and loves Bellamy for his character and is not like drawing myself plus Bellamy on their Trapper Keeper all the time obsessively. That's a small...
Not that there's anything wrong with that either. Like, let's, I might have a Trapper Keeper with Raven on it. You don't know my life.
Look, I have a Trapper Keeper filled with nothing but me plus Clarke on it, and I'm so curious, so confused about my sexuality at that point. Just like there's 99% of the collective fandom out there are rational people, and I tend to the cancer is the loudest part. And sometimes it gets you down and it colors your thoughts and your opinions. And Bubbles, I'm going to call you Bubs, if I can. Bubs and anybody else who I offended, I apologize. I enjoy Bellamy a whole heck of a lot. I'm not writing him and my name down in my Trapper Keeper. Maybe I should start. But really that portion of my Trapper Keeper is reserved for me and Nico. I love him inexplicably.
So that actor was actually on another really good sci-fi show that got canceled, Defying Gravity, with Ron Livingston from Office Space and
I keep hearing about this show.
It was actually it got really good and it ended on a cliffhanger, and I'm still upset about it. But anyway, He was on that show, so if you need a little fix.
Well, I don't know what it is about big, huge, bearded, tattooed men. In another life, I'd probably be a Hell's Angels bitch, but I'm not. I'm a 44-year-old marketing professional and never been on the back of a hog. So, so that's my apology, Bubs. And this isn't a fake. Oh, I'm sorry, I made you feel that way. Apology. This is an apology. I fucked up. I said something that was colored by an attitude that I should not really have. So, fandom out there.
Problems.
Stomach. I don't want to blame it on stomach problems. I don't want to blame it. I don't want to blame it on pain. I don't want to blame it on the painkillers. I just want to, apologize and remind everybody that there is a ton of cancer out there, and it's a very small portion of the fandom. Most of the good people, they don't go out there and tell you that they're good. There's a huge silent majority of folks that really enjoy the show, enjoy their favorite characters for their own reasons. And we all kind of need to remember that and let that color our attitudes about things. I feel like I'm doing an after-school special right now. So let's get on with the shoe. So did the DVD giveaway announcement. So we're talking about the first 4 episodes of season 2. And let me give you some of those details. The premiere of season 2 is 48, written by none other than Jason Rothenberg. Then we've got Inclement Weather, written by Michael Angeli. Repercussions, which a lot of people love, written by Allen Ginsberg and Wade McIntyre. And then Many Happy Returns, written by another writer favorite, Kim Shumway. So we had some good episodes to watch. I fucking love season 2. I will not apologize for loving season 2 so much. I think most people love season 2. What do you guys think of season 2?
I love it. I love these episodes. I think that these 4 episodes, or I mean, whatever, the beginning of season 2, the show just really takes off and goes to a whole other level. And Repercussions is one of my favorite episodes too. I think if I had a top 5 favorite episodes of the entire series, Repercussions would be one of those. So, yeah, cool. Great batch of episodes.
Yeah, season 2, I think that they like shed a lot of their like teeny bopper CW-ness.
Yeah.
And, you know, that likely also has to do with the fact that, you know, they've brought the adults back down and like we're going to see more grounders and stuff. So it's not just like, you know, 100 delinquents or, you know, however many have actually 87 or whatever, you know, just having their own dramas or whatever. Like, I think that, yeah, we're starting to really get into the meat of the show and it's gonna get dark and good.
Yeah, and then like the addition of the adults really adds some interesting leadership and power dynamics that go on, especially in the first 4 episodes. The other thing I wanted to mention is I really like, in line with the season 2 kind of sheds some of the CW-ness of the show. I really love shows that hit their stride in their second season. They kind of rework and retool some of the things that weren't necessarily all that great in season 1 and set a new course. And I think The 100 did that really well. The Leftovers is probably the biggest example of a season 2 rework that elevates the show to a whole new level. Like season 2 of Leftovers is superb, and I will knife fight anyone who says any differently. Because, you know, some shows, like, they do really well in season 1, and then season 2, they hit the sophomore slump. Obviously, True Detective was an example of that. If y'all watch Empire, oh my God, that became a shit show in season 2. I had to turn that off on my DVR. But, like, yeah.
I think, like, to your point in a show finding its way in season 2, and I'm actually going to bring this up, like, a little bit, just in terms of shows that were like elements of season 2 that were very like heavily referenced. I would say Buffy is a show that found itself in season 2, and there are some crazy parallels that actually happen in the 100 season 2 with regard to Buffy that we'll get into, I think, on a Spacewalker. But anyway, yeah, like it's definitely like the first season was good and like you got me watching, and then the second season you're like, shit, yeah, I'm into this. So I think, I think I concur.
Yeah, the 100 became a really challenging show in season 2, and challenging in a good way, making you think, making you consider moral choices, and just making. And just doing a lot of character development. Like, there's some great character development that goes on, even in these first 4 episodes, especially around Bellamy, in his juxtaposition to Finn. So let's start with some themes introduced and touched on in these episodes as a discussion point. Shaheen, I want to start with you because you've got one about the Harvest Chamber, and I want you to explain that a little bit. I'm interested to hear what you have to say about that.
Yeah, I think the whole Mount Weather and the Harvest Chamber, one way to interpret it is, apart from, the role that it plays in the story itself, you can just read it, watch it as what it is. You have people in Mount Weather and they need blood because they can't metabolize radiation or whatever bullshit science. But you can also read it as symbolism for our contemporary society, in that, I mean, obviously the mountain men are the closest group of people to our society of, our early 21st century. But the way that, we live in the West anyway, we live in by and large nice and peaceful society, and we have all kinds of nice things. And we kind of tend to ignore or never even realize, I think a lot of people don't even realize, so much of what we use comes from parts of the world where, people are enslaved, or otherwise, mistreated. They work their hands bloody. And, if you think about like metals, gold, even coffee, chocolate,
Yeah.
they come from parts of, usually Africa, where, conditions are really horrible. And we are on that bloodline. We are kind of dependent on that for our lifestyle. There's obviously a lot. It's the situation in Mount Weather is a lot less, a lot more straightforward. I mean, it's literally these people just using the grounders as objects for their own purposes. The situation in our world is a little more complicated, because you could argue back and forth about to what extent the Western society is responsible for the situation in the world. But in any case, there's this symbolism that I think is very interesting, where you have a society prosperous, peaceful, with a lot of amenities, and then but there is this dark secret where a lot of they couldn't have this lifestyle if it wasn't for all these other people being exploited.
So you're advocating for like free trade, fair trade, cage-free, pasture-raised bone marrow? Is that what we're like?
Yeah.
That is a really interesting take on it, because I wouldn't have thought about it that way. It's because my take on Mount Weather, which I'll get to later on, kind of mirrors that a little bit in the dark undercurrent of how is a society run, and what's the stuff in the background that you don't see or consider. So it is kind of idealized, but then again, we don't really think about conflict minerals or the people throwing themselves off of buildings in China rather than make our iPhones for us. So there is that kind of comfortable, willful ignorance that we all kind of exist in, that we don't want to think about those darker things that, it can get really depressing when you just take a look around you and go, what did it take to create this pair of shoes? How many kids in Bangladesh were not paid a living wage? It just, now I'm all depressed. Thanks, Shaheen.
I don't want to get into like too much of the the details about this. This is not what the podcast is about, but I do want to make a distinction between what's happening in Asia, Southeast Asia, and what's happening in Africa, because I think they're two separate things. And conditions in the supply chains for global companies, that's one thing, I think. And we need to realize that basically the reason that China is coming out of poverty in the past few decades is the existence of these the foreign investment. On the other hand, you have the situation in Africa where people are literally working as slaves. That's basically what it is. Maybe it's not called that, but again, it's like, well, we don't want that to be the case. And you see with mountain men, a lot of them don't want that to be the case.
Yeah.
But it's also a situation where it's like, what other choice do we have? So it's like, I think it just brings up these great questions about complicity. It's like, if you're just a regular citizen in the society, you have no intention of hurting anybody, but you also can't live in the society without using all these products, then are you complicit in this? To what extent are regular people who never actively decided that this should happen or this should be done this way, to what extent do they take part of the blame? And this question comes up about Mount Weather too, right? So it's very interesting. Brings up a lot of questions.
So basically now all our podcast listeners are just like in the corner, rocking back and forth, having existential crises, and just filled with ennui.
But playing Pokemon Go at the same time.
Exactly.
No.
There's a Charmander over here.
I mean, I think to your point, Shaheen, like this kind of gets back to like a discussion that we've brought up several times, and we will continue bringing up on this show. Where if people would have just talked to each other, like at no point, and this is like jumping ahead a little bit in terms of what happens with Mount Weather, but like at no, like what if? Call me crazy. What if, Dante had approached, Clarke and Kane and whatever, and he was like, so listen, hey, our people are dying. We're doing this really shitty thing to the grounders. Your people, if we take your blood marrow, we can, like, make all of our people safe to be outside. Everybody's a winner. Maybe we can share our, like, hydroponic farm techniques.
Right.
Like, the fact that, like, that was never an option brought up, that it was either we're going to, like, drill into them against their will and therefore make an enemy, or, they're going to escape, like, or, we're going to make Reapers. Like, anyway, this is, like, totally jumping ahead several episodes, but it made me think of that.
Yeah, this is definitely a theme in this show where a lot of things happen that way, where it's like, they so quickly get into this antagonistic setup where, and it's kind of like once it starts and once you've killed each other, it's really hard to go back. But if they had just paused at the beginning and just explained their situation to each other, you would think that this whole thing could have been avoided. So yeah, you're definitely right about
Right,
that.
like Mount Weather could have been like, so listen, this is going to be really painful, blood marrow stuff is terrible, but we have chocolate cake.
Yep.
Yeah, that's
mean,
chocolate cake is a big sell. I mean,
right?
I'd be like, yeah. So how much chocolate cake? Like
Like what's
lifetime
the
supply?
exchange rate?
I'd push for a lifetime supply personally, but that's just me. I'm kind of a pushover that way. So
Speaking of this, I wanted to. There was this question that I always had, and I didn't know where to bring this up. This might be a good place. I wasn't clear on why the mountain men were lying about the other survivors in the first place. My impression was that the Mount Weather had enough resources to bring in as many people as they wanted, and they needed the Sky people. And later on, it's mentioned that their plan was to assimilate them into the gene pool. So before they started, taking their bone marrow. So why are they lying about this? Why aren't they just trying to take as many Sky people in as possible? I was really confused about that.
yeah, well, I think because the Sky people that they take in at the beginning are the delinquents. They're a bunch of kids.
Mm-hmm.
Once you start talking about the rest of the Arkers, you're talking about adults and you're talking about a leadership hierarchy, and I don't see that going well, especially if Sky Crew finds out what Mount Weather has been doing and has a moral issue with it. So that's my take on it. I don't know, Joe, what your thoughts are around that.
No, I think that's like reasonable. It's kids are much easier to sort of. I mean, it's a lot easier when they're a lot younger, but it's a lot easier to win over some kids with chocolate cake than it is,
Jasper's a
Kane
pushover.
and Abby. And I know, right? I mean, to be fair, like I was actually just telling this story earlier. I remember I went to one of my cousin's like 1-year-old birthdays, and so I had a cousin who was 1 year old, and then I had another cousin who was like 3 maybe at the time. And his mom had raised him like total hippie, like watered down his juice. He'd never had cookies, no refined sugar, the whole thing. But he got to have chocolate cake for the first time. So there was a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old eating chocolate cake for the very first time. And they would have given an arm to continue eating. Like if you would ask the kids, so listen, I know you like your foot, but you like cake, which one will it be? Cake every time. Like the look on their face when they got to try it. So I can't even imagine like what it must have been like to not be eating either like dried squirrel that they like managed to kill out on the ground, or like whatever protein paste that their rations were on on the Ark. So yeah, I think it makes sense that they wanted to win over the kids, and it would definitely be easier. I mean, Jasper was already in love. Like this was a solid plan, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, Jasper's pretty much a pushover. And it's kind of understandable because he was the one that was speared by the Grounders. So they're safe in Mount Weather. They have food, they have clothes, they have, they're protected from the elements. And there was a point where Clarke doesn't believe the facade of Mount Weather. And, of course she doesn't believe it because it's Clarke. But Jasper says the only one around here that's a danger to us is you. Basically saying, sit down, you're rocking the boat. So I think that's an important thing to think about, especially as I get into the whole my analogy to Mount Weather and a period in American history.
Before you do that, Jen, can I say, going off of what you said about Jasper versus Clarke, there's clearly a narrative bias here where we as the viewers, we know that Clarke is right already, right? And I think that maybe that's a little unfair. And the same thing happened with Abby on the Ark when she was insisting that no, the delinquents, the kids are still alive, and we knew that she was right.
Yeah.
But imagine if you didn't know. Imagine if you had no idea of who's right here. Clarke does sound like a crazy person. It's like, why are you like this? Why would these people, there's no reason these people would be lying. And so I just want to mention the narrative is biased in favor of Clarke here.
Wait, but here's the thing though. Like, how many times does Clarke have to be right? Like, by the time even we get to season 3, people are like, well, I don't know, Clarke. And you're like, dude, every single time Clarke is right. Like, damn it. Like, at that point, like, it's like they're just being willfully ignorant and hating her for no reason.
There's a difference between being right for a reason and happening to be right. Going back to Plato.
I mean, I think for Clarke, they're one and the same. Like, that's her job. Like, her character is right.
Yeah, I don't like that.
Well, she's right, but again, I mean, she's right, but she's not necessarily always doing the right thing sometimes. Well, we can get into that later, but I think to your comment, Shaheen, about Jasper, he does get his moment later on in season 2 when he basically becomes kind of the leader inside of Mount Weather of the delinquents and doing his damnedest to protect those guys from Dr. Singh and her evil machinations. The one thing I wanted to mention about some major themes, I think it's interesting, like, as soon as the adults land on fucking Earth, fun is over for Bellamy and Clarke and everybody else. Like, the adults land on Earth, they're like, we're in charge now because we're the adults. And Bellamy's all like, dude, we've been down here fighting the Grounders, trying to find a way to survive, and all you want to do is come down here, establish your Exodus Charter, and put rules and regulations in place where we got to go and get our people back. Like, we got to go find Clarke. We got to find the other delinquents. And I think it's really interesting, that whole power dynamic that starts. Like, they come and squash Bellamy and Finn and the rest of those guys. And it's basically Raven who's like, look, Finn, you got to go find our friends. And Finn breaks Bellamy out of jail and reluctantly breaks Murphy out of jail. And they just go maverick it with Abby and Miller's dad's help. So I think that's kind of interesting, that whole power struggle. And how the chancellorship is such, this thing that everyone kind of idealizes. And we find out, like, as the series goes, that it doesn't, the mantle of leadership of official leadership, the chancellorship itself, does not always sit well on certain people. It doesn't sit well on Kane in the very beginning when they hit ground, and it didn't sit very well on him in the Ark. It doesn't necessarily sit very well on Jaha at times. And we see Abby as just not necessarily built for that position. She is a leader, but she doesn't do very well at official leadership. She leads more through her actions than actually having the official position. And I think Clarke is very much the same way. Clarke has zero interest in being the leader, having that title. She just does. I mean, she's a tryhard. She's like the original fucking tryhard. And leadership comes naturally to her, but she doesn't want to be the president. She doesn't want to be the chancellor. She's just going to go fucking do whatever she needs to do to further her agenda, for good or bad. And I think that it bites her in the butt several times. You had some foreshadowing for Clarke here for your key themes, Joe. What do you mean by that for Clarke and Bellamy?
Well, I mean, the obvious one for Clarke in this case is she's presented with a lever in Act 1, and we're gonna, I feel like every season sort of has a Chekhov's gun. Like, I feel like they're very good with that on this show. So she's gonna pull that lever later on. But it was interesting that at that moment she wasn't gonna kill all the innocents. That even though this was sort of a very like shady, weird situation, she could tell something was off, she still wasn't prepared to sentence every single person in Mount Weather to death. She hesitated. And whether or not that's because she found out what they were doing later, or, there really wasn't any other option. Like, at this point, she still thought that there were other options. I can't really speak to that, but, it was, there's Clarke with a lever, she's going to pull it. Like, at this point, like, if I see her with anything, like, she's gonna like fuck with it. And so I really liked that little callback that we are gonna get a couple more times. And then in terms of Bellamy, it's mostly when it comes to Bellamy versus Finn. There are some lines later on where Bellamy basically just kind of calls out Finn and is like, where was it? Something about him being like a loose cannon. Here we go.
Yeah.
Hey, you did what you think you had to do, but you're not yourself right now, and I can't be out here with another loose cannon. That's sort of hilarious at this point, having seen season 3 and seeing where Bellamy's character does end up going. But as far as season 2 goes, the fact that Bellamy is this sort of like steady, solid sort of character where, he will go and do the what needs to be done to make sure that his people are safe in a way that, doesn't massacre villages and whatnot. I just like that we're sort of getting away from Bellamy as whatever the hell we want.
Yeah, there's a total flip-flopping of their moral center in these first 4, in the beginning of season 2, because we know what happens with Finn later on. Like, Bellamy's the guy who is shocked when Finn kills the grounder in the bunker, because Bellamy's like, we're not in battle right now. You just don't shoot an unarmed opponent in the head. Bellamy does Bellamy in the beginning of this season and throughout the season really becomes kind of the moral center of the show. Which makes his transition in season 3 all that more problematic. But season 2 is really Bellamy's season to shine. He is very steady from the beginning. He won't leave Cliff Girl. I'm sorry, I don't remember her name. He won't leave Cliff Girl. Mel. He's not going to leave Cliff Girl there. He's not going to not go after his friends. He's not going to not go after Clarke. He's not going to shoot an unarmed grounder in the head. He's really flipped as far as what he was in the very beginning of season 1. I think we saw his evolution through season 1 into becoming somebody who is far less self-centered and more concerned with the welfare of his people. And it leads him to do some very smart and heroic things. And I really do love Bellamy in season 2.
Yeah, season 2 Bellamy is the reason why I think that there is such like a Bellamy fan contingency. And in terms of like being a fan of Bellamy, I totally agree. Like, I totally count myself as part of that. Which again, to your point, makes why season 3 was so problematic. But season 2 Bellamy is fucking awesome. Like, I
love season 2. Like, so action. There's nothing better than action hero Bellamy. Just nothing better.
I guess I kind of disagree with you guys.
What?
Not in terms of like liking Bellamy in season 2 or anything. I just
You're not a fangirl?
No, I just don't think that I think that he's been fairly consistent throughout. Like, I think that Bellamy is trying to find this balance all the time, and he's always the person who would do anything to protect those that he considers his family or his people, and especially little kids. And he's always struggling to find this balance And at this point, he's still thinking. I mean, he's coming out of the experience of torturing Lincoln, and then seeing that Lincoln was actually a force of good and peace, and his sister's boyfriend or whatever. And he at this point he's still hoping that they can maybe get along with Grounders, and he hasn't been betrayed by Grounders as much.
Yeah.
But given what happens later on, I think that, and given his personality, I think if you take a person like Bellamy and put him through these experiences with these people, to me, it's natural that you get someone like Bellamy in season 3. So I don't see that as problematic. I don't think that anything jarring happened or I just feel like and you have to keep in mind the effect of trauma. I mean, the same thing that's happening to Finn right now, I think it's, Finn is supposed to be like a representation of PTSD, where, a person who used to be the speaker for peace was like the resident pacifist, is now, because of the experiences that he's gone through, is completely, it's very easy to trigger him, and he's having trouble controlling his impulses. I guess I'm not doing a good job of explaining what it is, but you know what PTSD is. So
but remember though that this Bellamy, the Bellamy that wouldn't shoot the Grounder in the bunker, is the same Bellamy who shot the 2 Grounders on horses. He's the same Bellamy that helped with the massacre of 300 Grounders outside of Arcadia. So I mean, maybe his driving force is protecting his people, but the way he channels that and acts on that impulse is inconsistent in how it considers people outside of his people, right? So I think he expresses a lot of.
But even in season 3, I mean, he was never happy with what he did to the army. I mean, he was clearly struggling. So
yes,
he was struggling,
but he was struggling, but he still went through with it. He still let things get really, really bad in season 3, to the point where Kane, Lincoln, and Sinclair were going to be executed. So, there's a culpability there his part.
I think that most of those things would have happened without Bellamy anyway. He was actually there trying to pull Pike back a little bit to the center.
After he helped install Pike as the chancellor.
I don't see it that way, actually. I mean, I don't see how it would have made any difference. I feel like the Arcadians were so sick of Kane and Abby's appeasement policy that Pike would have been elected anyway.
Well, I guess we'll find out more once we get to season 3.
Yeah, we can talk about
is this a rabbit hole we went down? Yes, it is a rabbit hole.
We went down a rabbit hole.
Yeah, okay. Let's talk about our favorite world building moments. And this is where I'm going to go deep, guys. So I want to talk a little bit about Mount Weather and its parallels to 1950s America. And the reason why I'm going down this road is because when I first watched season 2 and saw Mount Weather, the aesthetic of Mount Weather is just so odd. Okay. Like the set design, the wardrobe, everything is just anachronistic to the time period of when people would be evacuating to Mount Weather. So 2052. If you look at the clothes and you look at the furniture and everything within Mount Weather, it's just so strange. So that's why I'm like, what does this remind me of? And it reminds me of 1950s America. So I'm going to do a little bit of a historical background for folks who may not have been born in this country and don't know some of the historical background of 20th century America. And plus, we've got a lot of listeners around the world. So hello, everybody from around the world who might not be familiar with some of the stuff that happened in the 1950s and the surrounding decades. So just a little bit of background about Mount Weather itself. It is an actual facility that does exist. It's a Department of Homeland Security facility in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia, and it's operated by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA. So it basically, it's the backup to Homeland Security's National Operations Center, which has an around-the-clock war room and monitors intelligence, security, and emergency incidents, across the world. So it's a pretty important facility. We don't know a ton about it because until the Freedom of Information Act, everything around it was classified. So what I'm telling you now is just very dribs and drabs type of information that we know about. And so it's basically a facility that's part of the continuity of operations plan. So basically what that means in the event of a national emergency, this is the evacuation site for high civilian and military personnel. So POTUS would evacuate here. Members of Congress would evacuate here. So it's a very important facility when it comes to the continuity of the U.S. government. I don't know if VOTUS would ever be evacuated there along with POTUS. I think I would love to see Selena Meyer in Mount Weather. She'd go fucking crazy.
For our listeners from around the world, POTUS is President of the United States.
And VOTUS is Vice President.
And really, everyone should watch The West Wing. That's my takeaway of this. Watch The West Wing.
No, everybody should be watching Veep. That's what they should be watching. So the reason why I think that Mount Weather kind of mirrors 1950s America is that the 1950s are really unique, and there's always this kind of sentimental longing for the good old days or make America great again. And it's when people say that, they're thinking of a specific period in time that the 1950s represents. So I want to talk about the 1950s, but you got to talk about it kind of in context of the surrounding decades. It's bookended by the 1940s. Obviously, America was involved with and victorious in World War II. And we basically ended that war by dropping 2 atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The war helped pull us out of the Great Depression because, whenever there's a war, there's always an uptick in the economy because you've got a lot of jobs being created and things being manufactured. And it also, the 1940s represents the start of the Cold War around 1947. We're coming out of victory from World War II, a lot of prosperity going on in the United States that moment in time. So on the other end of the 50s, you've got the 1960s. Which is a very tumultuous time culturally for America. We've got riots, we've got racial tensions, we've got anti-Vietnam War protests, and a lot of high-profile assassinations. Of course, the big one being JFK, John F. Kennedy, who was the president of the United States at that time. His brother Robert F. Kennedy was also assassinated, and of course, Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated, who was the leader of the civil rights movement at the time. So, you're coming out of the 40s, great time, into the 60s, really difficult time in America. So the 1950s, though, the 1950s were fucking awesome. If you were a white male, okay.
Okay, with the caveat that, it was really good for some people.
Yes, for some people. So a little bit of information about the 1950s. At that time, America was the world's strongest military power. No doubt about it. Another big cultural thing that happened in the 1950s is the suburbs exploded. There was an exodus out of the cities into the suburbs. So if you were a white middle-class family, you were going out to the suburbs and living in style with your white picket fence. That became an American ideal. You also had the idealized American family. So you move to the suburbs to an affordable tract home. You raised a family. The wife stays home to take care of the house and kids, and the man goes out and he works his job and has a career. The 1950s had a historic and never again replicated economic growth for the United States. We had a surplus. We had more money coming in the United States from foreign money than we had going out. It was a huge booming decade. Booming. So we had an economic boom and we had a population boom. That's where the term baby boomers comes from. Unemployment and inflation were low. Wages were high. Everything was great in the 1950s. And something that's really important is that Americans felt a sense of hope and optimism for their future and for future prosperity.
Some people.
But yeah, so that's what I'm getting to, Joe. The 1950s had a dark side, kind of like Mount Weather has a dark side. So America was not great for non-white, non-male Americans. The civil rights movement actually had its genesis in the 1950s. Rosa Parks and her sitting wherever the fuck she wanted on the bus happened. We also had Brown versus the Board of Education in the mid-50s. And for you guys who don't know about what that is, Brown versus the Board of Education was basically an act by, I believe, the Supreme Court to desegregate the schools. And that did not go over well, especially in the American South, where segregation and racial tensions were pretty much the standard for American life in the South and for Black Americans. So, women were also encouraged to leave the workforce and embrace being housewives. And you're like, wait a minute, it's the 1950s, women leaving the workforce? When were women working? Well, 1940s, they were the ones who were building the shit to support the troops. So you had a lot of women doing trade work and a lot of women in the workforce that were now like, oh, you don't need to work anymore, honey, stay home and take care of the kids. Another really dark part of American society was McCarthyism. So with the start of the Cold War and the kind of the looming specter of back then the Soviet Union or the USSR, communism was a huge boogeyman to all Americans. So McCarthyism was on the rise, and McCarthy was this guy who basically would just fucking accuse people of being communists. And Congress actually held 84 hearings between 1945 and 1952 to uncover treasonous activities. So if you're like wondering, how can the U.S. Congress waste their time besides trying to repeal Obamacare like 50,000 times? Well, they did it with McCarthyism, where they pulled actors and famous people throughout the United States in front of Congress to hurl insults and accusations at them that they were communists. And then in relation to kind of the USSR, there was this omnipresent threat of the Cold War, duck and cover, basically. So like the game Fallout kind of gets a lot of its aesthetic from the 1950s, and that Fallout is about a nuclear apocalypse. So basically, you had an idyllic life, except for you could have nuclear bombs dropped in your head by the Soviet Union at any point in time, and you were told to duck and cover, and basically had to kiss your ass goodbye, because there's no recovering from a nuclear bomb striking like major population centers. So the reason why I think like Mount Weather in the 1950s, there's an obvious parallel here is kind of that strange aesthetic. It like Mount Weather doesn't have a future look and feel. The clothes aren't modern. The furniture isn't modern. The dining room feels like it's stuck in time. And it's weird. Like, why does everyone get dressed up to go eat? Right? Like they're wearing their suits and their military uniforms and dresses, and the women are in their best pearls. And this is very much a callback to the 1950s when things were kind of more formal. Like the man would wear his suit to work. He needed to come home and maybe take his suit jacket off, but he was still going to be formal. The woman got all dressed up. Even though she's taking care of the kids and like dusting at home, she still got her hair did. She's got her nice dress on. She's got her pearls, her string of pearls on. And that is the string of pearls. And watch for the folks they're wearing string of pearls, especially the very first woman in the very beginning in the cold open. She's wearing pearls. It is a signature accessory of the 1950s.
Well, I have a theory about this then in terms of your aesthetic. So remind me again, like so they'll go into Mount Weather in what year? Like 2000.
Like 2052 is when the bombs drop. So we're assuming that is the year.
Okay. So you know how like right now the aesthetic with like the cool hip fashion hipsters is like to do like really ugly like 80s and 90s stuff? Like, what if the reason for the 1950s aesthetic is when the bombs dropped, 1950s was like the cool chic thing to be like retroing and calling back to? Like, that's what the thrift stores were being emptied of. So like,
yeah, but I don't think we're talking a century old clothes, right? So I don't think the thrift stores are going to be having. I don't know. We got the
fucking steampunk people with their like 1800 shit. Like, who's to say that they make that in 2052? That the aesthetic isn't going to be 1950s. Like, what if it's the hipsters?
Well, I mean, even going above and beyond the aesthetic, if you look at Mount Weather, it looks perfect and idyllic, but it harbors the dark secret that everyone in Mount Weather is complicit with as they drain the grounders of their blood. So basically in 1950s, if you were a white American, life was pretty good for you. But if you were a black American, life was pretty shitty for you. We had segregated bathrooms, segregated water fountains, segregated schools, segregated, school buses. I mean, there was an undercurrent of something very wrong going on in society, that the white picket fences and the suburbia and the pearls around the neck and the perfect hair and the perfect suits and dresses, you would never know looking at these people that they were complicit in this thing going on in society. And then, of course, we've got also the other parallel between Mount Weather and 1950s is that nuclear threat. There's always that radiation threat that the folks in Mount Weather have to deal with any sort of containment breach. That's what the woman at the very beginning, when Clarke spins around and she's looking into the meal hall and she's like, what the fuckity fuck? The woman in her string of pearls points at her and is like, containment breach. So radiation is a big thing there. And I don't mean to be crass and compare the racial divide in America during its history to like how the grounders are treated. I don't mean to draw a parallel there. I mean to draw a parallel in that there's this unspoken, us versus them type of thing. Because I don't think it's even though that, I just don't want to be like, oh yeah, so the whole racial thing going on in the 1950s, the grounders totally represent that. I don't mean to be crass, because I think the racial strife in this country back then and now, I don't want to compare it because I think it's crass to do so. I don't think it's represented in the same way in the 100. So I just want to make that clear that I'm not trying to be insensitive about it. But I just, that's my thing about the 1950s American history and kind of how the aesthetic is weird, and then the thematic parallels to the 50s are there. I just think I don't know if it was deliberate, but it just feels like something had to happen where a conversation took place in that, what does a perfect society look like? And if you're an American, and the writers are mainly American, they're like, well, in the 1950s, that was the society that people who pine for the good old days, that's what they pine for. Right or wrong, that's what they pine for. So that's my spiel.
Well, and it's kind of perfect then, because there was that dark undercurrent, is that it wasn't actually so idyllic. And so I think it was definitely a very easy aesthetic for them to choose. Yeah, like you wouldn't choose the 1930s, and the 60s are all crazy, and counterculture in the 70s, and then shit gets kind of weird in the 80s, and
90s had flannel and grunge.
And neon. So it's just a whole thing. Like, what are they going to do? Like, how are you going to get frosted tips, in Mount Weather? So, I think the 50s is the obvious choice.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, like the threats of society back then, like, you had this looming nuclear threat, but it was over there. It was something that wasn't tangible or realized. Like, it is a horrible, horrible thing to think about, getting nuclear bomb dropped on you. But it's kind of like a separate, like, an abstract type of thing. That's the word I was looking for.
But it's not abstract for Mount Weather at all. No, like, at any point that door could open, and it does.
Yeah, that is the point. Yeah, that you do have a point.
Well, it wasn't really abstract in the Cold War either. I mean, they came close a couple of times. At least twice. One time in Berlin and one time in Cuba.
Yeah,
they came pretty
crisis.
fucking
close. We were so
close
close to being fucking bombed off the earth,
actually happening. Yes.
So if you're not familiar with American history and familiar with the Cold War, the world came very close to ending a couple times, and that should scare the fucking shit out of you. I mean, I know we live in a society now where something awful happens every single day. If it's not terrorism, it's mass shootings, it's black guys getting killed by cops, it's cops getting slaughtered. I mean, there's some really horrible shit going on. But the world almost ended, a couple times because of the military and struggle in ideals between communism and democracy between the U.S. and the USSR. So scary stuff, Fucking world is crazy at all points in time, not just now.
Yeah.
So that's my
We live
spiel.
in relatively peaceful times, by the way. I just want to mention.
Yeah, I mean, relatively peaceful when you think about the quantity of people getting killed, but the horrificness of and the media attention that things get nowadays, it's like everybody's dying. Everything's ending.
Yeah, I mean, social media and other media and the existence of internet, it makes it, because everything is in spotlight and everything is, blows up, goes viral. So we feel like a lot of shit is going down. But actually, if you think about it, far fewer people are being hurt today than they were 50 years ago. So
yeah. Could you imagine if social media were around during the Cuban Missile Crisis? People would have lost their shit. I wanted to get into the other world building moments. So I wanted to talk, Joe, talk about, you like Jaha in the desert.
Yeah, I mean, it's less about like, I guess it's more like environmental world building. Like,
yeah, I like that too. I thought I like the different look to it.
Yeah, like all of a sudden, I don't think we had met other grounders at that point. Like we only knew who, essentially Tree Crew. Those were the only grounders. Like we don't know that there are 12 tribes. We don't know any of that yet. And so the fact that there's like these desert nomads, with like where parents go to raise their mutant children, I think that was super cool. And we did find out that was like the first like hint dropping of the City of Light, and we had no idea what that was. I really like that. And in terms of like a visual sort of thing, and this is sort of like totally random, but when Jaha sort of opens his eyes and he has he's holding on to the little chess figurine, the Black Knight, it really reminded me of the Black Stallion, which I don't know if any of you guys ever watched as a kid, where a boy wakes up from a shipwreck and he has a tiny little horse figurine.
That
and it
rings
was
a bell, yeah.
It was of Alexander's horse. What is the name of that horse? Starts with a B. Anyway, I'm a terrible person for not remembering.
Black Stallion? Could that be? Okay.
But yeah, so like this boy like wakes up in the sand and he just kind of like has one eye open and he's kind of like, he's all parched as well and covered in dried sand. He's like looking at this little tiny horse figurine. So that actually just, it warmed my heart because that was like a really favorite movie of mine. And actually a lot of TV shows and music videos have been referencing the Black Stallion lately. I don't know if you guys caught the horse episode of Bob's Burgers, but they basically did like a shot for shot and like reuse the original score, and there's a music video that also has like some clips from the movie. Apparently this kid riding a horse through the surf is like the most iconic thing ever existing. But anyway, I just really liked that we got to see that there is more than just forest on the East Coast. I don't know how Manhattan ended up becoming a desert, if only because most of Manhattan is actually on bedrock. And not sand and soil, but that's a separate issue, I guess, of Well Actually.
Look at you getting all geological with us.
I don't know, like I'm sure someone on the subreddit will actually me and be like, no, but there would be sand.
Wouldn't all the skyscrapers turn into sand?
Would they though? Like how? Like what do you mean? Like being vaporized?
They're made of steel, not steel, and I don't know like what the
concrete?
External. Like concrete.
I mean, yeah, but this was like yellow sand.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I absolutely love the Dead Zone.
Like
I want to see it again.
I love it. All things the Dead Zone. I love it. The stunning visuals. I love the atmosphere. Everything changes. Everything becomes so mythological and so different. And I love the whole Zoran Sienna story, and it's just great. All the stuff about the outcasts and the City of Light being foreshadowed, and it's just
I
great.
want to see more of the Dead Zone too, and like what kind of like people it has.
Because I'm sure there are a lot of people, like not a lot of people, but like surely that was not the only family and the only like bandits that bought Jaha. Like I'm sure that there are people out there living in this desert, and where are they? What's their story?
Yeah.
I wonder if they're the Sand Crew.
Oh, maybe. But like they seemed very like, especially with like the, with having like the mutated face. I don't think that they would be
No, I mean
allowed.
there are the outcasts, and then there's the desert clan. I think that's a separate clan. I kind of have a suspicion that the desert clan lives in that quarantine zone that they show in the intro sequence. Maybe we'll get to see that in season 4.
Huh.
We can only hope.
Because the quarantine zone is located in the desert too.
I wonder why that. I wonder where that's located though, and like why it would get that way.
Yeah.
Because we're not going to go far west, and in the south, the Midwest, and the East, there aren't no deserts. You got to get to Texas before you start running into deserts.
We don't know how far all of the clans extend. Like, I don't think
that's the weird thing. Like,
they're not supposed to extend very far. They're all supposed to be in that region.
Yeah, I don't think we go anywhere close to being west of the Mississippi. Like, in terms of...
No.
Like, do you think it goes, like, how far down do you think it goes? Do you think it, like, includes Florida Man?
No.
Just like a clan that,
oh my God,
I want them to meet
alligators
Florida
and smokes bath salts and, like, eats people's faces off. And, like,
Turns
gets
out-
into naked fights at Walmart. Around a Walmart.
Oh my God, and then, like, whoever that is the person that they need to, like, help them survive the next, like, nuclear meltdowns. Like, that he's actually, like,
Florida Man.
Like, Florida Man.
So it's
knows how to
Eugene,
solve
basically.
this. Yeah,
It's Eugene
totally
from The Walking Dead. Oh my God. That'd be great. I would love to see that. So, Shaheen, let's get into some of your favorite world building moments.
All right, so I talked about the dead zone. I want to briefly mention the position of Arcadia as we're building this world and is expanding. So Arcadia is Alpha Station, and I think part of Mecha Station. It falls down. It's about an hour southwest of the dropship, an hour walk. So it can't be more than 10 miles. And the dropship itself is, of course, 20 miles away from Mount Weather, to the northeast of it. The dropship and Arcadia are both kind of 20 miles from Mount Weather and about 40 miles from Taun, DC.
Isn't it really convenient just how close all of these things managed to happen to one another?
Well, they kind of aimed it. They aimed it in that direction. But
because if you recall, like, they had a window of opportunity to hit the eastern United States.
Yeah.
But that's still a pretty big place. Like, eastern United States. Like...
Yeah, I mean, the rest of the arc fell in other places. But yeah, it's kind of convenient, kind of lucky that the all the characters that we know at this point, they ended up very close.
Look, it's it's how it makes the world go round. There's no other way to do it.
Yeah, and I love the Taun DC, the introduction of Taun DC. It's not being mentioned by name yet, but we see the Lincoln Memorial.
That was cool.
It's great, and it's overgrown. It's so daunting, that image, and I love Trigger slang. It's awesome. David J. Peterson is great, and
he never responded to my tweet. Like, I sent him a tweet
asking
about...
you have to ask him on Tumblr. He's not gonna...
He's pretty busy, though. He gets a shit ton of stuff from people.
Yeah, but she had a good question about the languages...
Can I ask it now?
Yeah, you might as well. I mean, to see what people think.
Okay, so and it's actually it's even more relevant now in terms of now that we've also met people from Mount Weather. So why is it that the English language, like, I'm already accepting that, the Grounders can have their own language, like, that's fine. But why is it that the English language spoken between the Grounders, Sky Crew, and Mount Weather has not diverged in 100 years? Like, not that they wouldn't be able to understand each other, but think about the fact that if I went back in time 100 years, I'm going to use different words, that slang is going to have evolved. Is it the fact that they don't have mass media, like, speeding up their sort of language evolution? Or, like, are they like France where no new words are allowed? Like, I don't understand how they all speak the same English.
Maybe their societies are too small to, like, organically create slang. I don't know.
I think that this is mostly just because it would have been really difficult to get all the actors to speak a whole other language.
Sure. So you're saying it's like
but
a
I mean,
like the
why-
entirety of the time.
I mean, obviously, like the Sky Crew, they use float to mean go kill yourself. or
Yeah,
go
there are
fuck
some
yourself.
things that have changed.
Like Mount Weather wouldn't understand that context, but I think Joe is right. Like there's no new words, there's no new slang. Everybody speaks the same version of English. Again,
Yeah.
I guess that's probably actually, and that might be a good question for David J. Peterson.
I think he already answered this. I've seen him talk about this, and he said that realistically it should have changed more, but it's just
Budget.
what's that?
Budget constraints.
Well, no,
It's
it's such a small detail that it's not worth the effort.
Yeah,
It's just like it's so salient to me. Like for me, it's like
Because you're a freak.
that's fair.
yeah. But in terms of how Trigger slang could change, how English could evolve into Trigger slang so quickly, I think the answer is supposed to be that because life expectancy dropped so drastically after the bombs, basically like people are barely living beyond their 20s or 30s. So it's basically like everything is evolving 4 times faster than it is now. So
It's like the happy 1500s all over again.
yeah, and there's like all the institutions have been destroyed, education and everything that preserves culture and language has been destroyed, so things are evolving a lot faster. But and that explains why it's hasn't evolved so quickly on the Ark and in Mount Weather, because they still have the institutions and because they still live to the old age, so that things have more inertia. But again, realistically, you're right. Those languages also should have evolved a little bit more than they actually did.
Just
yeah.
a little bit. Just a little bit.
Yeah.
All right, so
Well, we've just alienated Danny out of our podcast and anyone else in the UK. Great.
well, yeah, I'm sorry.
I think that you should just do
Sorry, old chap.
an offensive, just
Fuck all
butchering
y'all.
of an
I hate
accent every
everybody.
episode.
Oh, you know what? Yeah, you know what? Fuck North Dakota. I was gonna do a fake apology to North Dakota for my horrible North Dakota accent last time, but then I looked at our podcast stats, and nobody from North Dakota listens to us. So fuck you,
so-
North Dakota.
All three
right.
of you.
All 3 of y'all with your snow and casseroles and shit. So let's
Ice
get
fishing
ice fishing.
and hockey.
Hey, hockey's okay. I like hockey. I'm from Chicago. I
And
got
your
the Blackhawks.
yaws
So
and your
my what? My
Yaw?
yaws?
North Dakota. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
North Dakota. Gotta go watch.
Why
some
are we
Fargo.
hating on North Dakota?
Because we have no listeners from there. So
Oh, okay.
fuck you, North Dakota. They're like the only people we can't offend. Fuck North Dakota. Let's get on the fuck North Dakota train, everybody.
Do they have trains in North Dakota?
I don't even know if they have electricity up there. Come on now.
Oh god, it's
All right,
actually
so-
the region with the lowest unemployment right now.
Oil.
Oil, baby. Oil. Yeah, that dinosaur juice is really making things go around for the next 50 years or so, and then we're going to see the bottom drop out. Oh, celebrate while you can, Saudi Arabia. All right, I just made Saudi Arabia hate me now, too. That's a little bit more dangerous than North Dakota. All right, so let's get into our favorite character arcs and evolution.
MVP.
Yeah, and if you have an MVP, I think we all kind of, I think I finally like figured out in these 4 episodes that Clarke has 0 chill, and she's like the number 1 tryhard of all tryhards. That's basically who Clarke is. She's a tryhard. So maybe that's why I like her so much, because when I play video games, I'm a real big tryhard, and for some reason, trying hard at things is derisive and something to be insulted upon in video games. But yeah, she has 0 chill. I love it. I think the reason why we like her so much in season 2, and then in season 3 we're like wah wah on Clarke, is because she has so much agency and she takes so much initiative in season 2. Like, again, this goes back to my point of she doesn't fucking care about being called a leader or a title. She just goes and gets shit done. And she makes a lot of decisions for everybody, and everybody kind of goes along with her. And in season 3, she like, I'm just going to hang around Polis for a while and like maybe try assassinating Naya. Oh, that didn't work. And then she just doesn't have a lot of agency in season 3 for the most part. So I really love how she develops in season 2. She blossoms into her full Dark Clarke self. Who do you like in some of the character arcs in season 2, these first 4 episodes?
I mean, we already kind of talked about Finn and Bellamy, so I'll talk about. I really liked the dynamic between Clarke and Anya.
We had a conversation about this one.
Yeah, like I really like. Well, first of all, I like Anya. Like you already talked about Clarke. I like Anya. I think knowing that Lexa was Anya's second, and that Anya is kind of like, all right, like once they get into a fist fight and there's mud everywhere and whatever, Anya kind of coming around to like, okay, maybe we could try an alliance with Sky Crew. Like maybe, this is something that I could at least take back to my commander. But I will say that my MVP for all these episodes, though, is Anya's eye roll. Like every single time she's hanging out with Clarke, like the camera just like lands on her for a second and her eyes are like in the back of her head. And it's so good. Like she plays it so well. And so I'm actually like, I'm sad we lost Anya. Like that was a character that honestly I liked Anya more than Wells if we're talking about dead characters that I wish were still around. And like I feel like there was a lot of growth options there, but I think that the fist fight that they had where I don't know if I buy that Clarke would have gotten the drop on Anya and actually won that, but I really kind of like the look of like, all right, you punched me in the face a bunch of times. I guess we're cool and I respect you now. Like I think I liked that Clarke sort of met Anya on a level that Anya understood, which was punching each other in the face. And
yeah.
Yeah.
now we're cool.
She gains respect for Clarke because she fought well. So that's always that's consistent grounder attitude.
Yeah. Good job, Clarke.
Now about getting the drop on Anya, you got to remember that Anya's coming out of a drug haze, right? She was tranked by Clarke, so she's still wobbly on her feet.
And she's been drained for her blood.
Was she drained? Did we know that like that's what happened to her?
No, she wasn't drained yet, because I think when they drain you, they kill you and they give you to the Reapers. I think she was probably suffering from was malnutrition. I don't think they like fed the grounders that were in the cages.
I think they drain you multiple times before you
might
become useless. Yeah, I think she had like.
She was wearing the drainage underwear, so I don't.
Didn't she have marks on her arms and stuff?
I can't remember. She's just dirty.
So Clarke won because Anya was woozy. That is more believable.
And Clarke is Clarke is a tryhard too. Plus, she fought dirty. It was great when she in
a fight. There is no fighting.
She had pocket sand and threw it in Anya's eyes. It was awesome. In a fight to the death, there is no fighting dirty. You punch and grab and
I kind of didn't
kick
know.
Nads in.
The first time, I didn't know if Clarke was going to kill Anya. Like, that's kind of like why I liked Clarke's evolution, is all of a sudden you're like, shit, is she going to kill her? And then you're like, oh, no. Like, Clarke is going to make, like, the rational choice here. But, like, the very first time watching it, and, like, my friend who watched it with us, and she's watching it for the first time, was like, shit, is she going to kill her? Because
she was going to kill her.
She was going to.
She was going to kill her until she saw that weather balloon.
Yeah, the balloon saved Anya.
Yeah, Clarke wasn't gonna go all full knife you in the face.
But then I'm like she raises the knife and then she sees the balloon and then she puts the fucking knife on the ground and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, she's just gonna stab you now. Like, how stupid is that?
Are we besties now?
Or is she just like, all right, now that I beat her, she's gonna respect me now? I don't know.
Maybe Clarke knew that they were cool. Like, we're cool now, right?
So, Shaheen, what do you think about this idea? Because Joe and I were talking about it earlier on Skype chat. A buddy cop show with Anya and Clarke as, like, the buddy cops.
Who's the sidekick? Is Clarke
the sidekick? You don't need a sidekick. No, they're like both partners. They're like detectives or something. And Clarke is the try-hard serious one who's always like, and then Anya's the eye-rolly one and is like, and then Lexa as their commander who's like, you too. Come on,
In my office.
show. That would be the best show.
Yeah.
And Bellamy is like the
I would
hothead
watch it.
cop that like they like trust for information and stuff, but like sometimes he fucks up and then they have to clean up his mess, and like Raven is basically Q, and so she's like coming up with gadgets and shit. Like, I mean, I'd be really into it. No, like Raven and Monty would totally be Fitzsimmons. Huh? No? Am I the only one who watches
Monty.
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.?
I'm trying to picture them as Fitzsimmons.
I mean, not romantic Fitzsimmons.
There's nothing other than romantic Fitzsimmons. I don't know what you're
bad.
talking about. Those two go together like peas and carrots. Great. Now I'm like sitting here thinking about Fitzsimmons.
Who's your
Speaking
favorite?
of-
Wait, what?
I get them confused, to be honest with you.
They're the same. Wait, what were you going to say, Shaheen?
Oh, sorry. I was gonna say, speaking of Anya dying, I think that's another. Isn't that what makes the show great? Like, characters that you would think that you
Have a
become
purpose.
invested in actually die. I think that's great.
Yeah, but
Wait.
it sucks when it's like somebody you really, really like and want to see more of. It's like, oh,
But that's otherwise. It's
you
just
took my
it's
cake
just like any
away.
other. Like it's just the same old like side characters, unimportant characters die. But this is what makes it great.
side unimportant characters die. How dare you?
Like
sir?
on other shows, like that claim to
like-
be like when, as you know, we're talking about being high stakes. I think this is what it means, right? If no character even at the level of Anya died, then it wouldn't be a high stakes show.
Yeah,
Sure,
why
though-
can't they kill like why can't they kill somebody like Jaha? Sorry, Danny. Jaha, the Jaha
Hey,
defense squad
Danny's
of
not
two
the
people.
only
Oh,
advocate of
who else
Jaha
is
here,
one?
okay?
Is it Dumb Bones?
Shaheen is a Jaha apologist.
The Jahaholic. That didn't work.
Jahaholic.
That did not
like
work
that.
out too well, did it?
Not your best work, Jenny. Not your
Thanks.
best work.
Oh my goodness. Die.
So Shaheen, what about you? Like, what I see something you enjoyed the high heel breaking.
Yeah.
What are your feelings on
very
women?
That's just
symbolic.
sexy.
The Clarke breaking the high heel, that's very symbolic. Like, you know.
Like, fuck these shoes, dude. Wait, what? How is it symbolic?
Yeah.
You know, like women breaking the bounds of
Shit, look
tradition
at you with the feminist,
and whatever
with the feminist
shit.
commentary.
Yeah.
But was it though? Like, because that's not really the environment that they were raised in. Like,
But,
she
but
wasn't,
Look at her. Look at the wardrobe as she opens it.
which was fucking retarded.
It was fucking ridiculous. Like total like 1950s dress. Doll yourself up and come to
Yeah.
dinner. Creepy Arlo Givens with your wardrobe. Yeah, I like Shaheen with the feminist commentary. I like it.
Yeah.
I like that. So I like the Raven Murphy sequence too, Shaheen. Like, Raven was gonna shoot his balls off. Come on.
I like how like she doesn't give up. She like pulls the trigger a bunch of times, hoping that maybe there's still a bullet left. That's
Fuck you
awesome.
into infinity, Murphy.
But
Yeah.
I like that Murphy was like, I would have shot me too, and like he knows that he's the villain. Like
Yeah.
I think we were talking about this with 12 Monkeys. Was it 12 Monkeys?
No, it was Outlander with
Outlander, right?
yeah, with
Blackjack.
Blackjack Randall.
Yeah, like a character who like knows that they are shitty, that they are a shitty person.
Yeah.
And that like it's not an intentional thing to be shitty to other people, but just like this thing that they are. And so he recognizes it. He's like, yeah, man, I would have fucking shot me too. Like, that's
Yeah.
cool.
Murphy
I
is the
don't-
most self-aware character.
Yeah, he kind of is. He kind of is. I'd like to just give a little shout out to Kane. I know I kind of like every single podcast. I kind of just like, Kane is so great. But as far as his like evolution and character development, you see him because he's aware of the dangers around them. Strictly go by the Exodus Charter because he thinks it's going to protect them if they follow the rules and they make sure that everything's secure and nobody breaks the rules and
So sweet, so naive.
yeah, doesn't traffic in guns and whatnot. And then he has to shot glass Abby, and then he kind of breaks.
Does he
and
break?
yes, he like after he does that, you could watch his face during that scene where he's just like shot glass Abby again. You can just kind of see him just like, this is not who I fucking want to be. And then after that, that's when he's like, here's the fucking chancellorship. I'm gonna go make peace and plant a tree.
I don't think it's a turning point for him, though.
I think it's the decision. It's the decision point, basically. Like, this is a guy who he was kind of always going to be, but the tipping point was what he had to do to Abby.
Okay, I disagree. I think the tipping point was obviously the culling. And then at this point, I mean, it was explained very well that, like, he came to the conclusion that he had to do this somewhat under the influence of Major Byrne, you know. And I support his decision. What else do you think? So what do you think he should have done? Just let it go? Because come on, I mean, Abby had it coming. I mean, she just breaks laws left and right. Like, you can't do that. You can't just. What's that?
That's what the Griffins do. There should be like the Exodus Charter and then the Griffin Charter.
Like, who does she think she is? She just goes around, frees prisoners, gives them guns.
She is Abby goddamn Griffin, sir. Like, that's who she is.
You can't do that. You have to accept the consequences. And the camp was on the knife's edge. It was, you know, people were going crazy. So Kane felt like there were some deterrence was needed.
So he shock lashed the woman of his dreams. I mean, that's
not his dreams yet. Do you think he likes her yet?
I think it simmers.
It
simmers a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. These two, you know, you can see it.
And also, like, did you notice that Abby is basically partially responsible for the Tondisi massacre? Because the only thing that came out of arming these delinquents and sending them off to find Clarke and the rest was the Tondisi massacre, and they saved Mel. So
I'm sorry, I got confused between the Tondisi bomb and the massacre. Yeah, I mean, we're gonna
like nothing good came out of that. So Abby was wrong about that.
I'm ejecting out of this conversation, because this is getting into the whole guns don't kill people, people kill people debate that I don't. Thanks for making this a political podcast now, Shaheen.
But I think that in terms of like one of the themes of this show is the complexity of the chain of consequences that follow from each action. One of the examples is Abby arming the delinquents that, you know, in a chain of consequences leads to Finn massacring people in Tondisi. Another example is that I really like is, you know, how Wick is playing with helium and that gives Raven the idea for a helium balloon. That pisses off Major Byrne. So she authorizes shoot on sight because of the helium balloon. And that the helium balloon is also why Clarke finds Arcadia and brings Anya with her. And which is why Anya dies. The combination of shoot on sight policy and the fact that Anya was there is why Anya dies. So like all of this cascade of consequences is very interesting.
I do think that the show does kind of well with that.
My mind is blown a little by what you just said.
The show does a really good job of like this, then this, then this, and it's like a train of like little. It's the butterfly. I hate that butterfly effect, where like you're not paying attention to these things, and then when they all happen, you're like, well, so the balloon saved Anya's life, but then it actually killed her.
Yeah.
Good job, balloon.
Let's blame Wick. We'll just blame Wick for this.
Oh,
which is like potentially very important because Anya was gonna go talk to Lexa, yeah. So
and be like, maybe we should have peace, and just kidding.
Yeah. In like 2 seconds, the hopes are shattered.
I feel like that's what season 2 is, actually. Season 2 is hope, 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 shatter, shatter, shatter.
Yeah.
Like like one after the other after the other. I think that's what season 2 feels
and season
like.
3 is just like shatter, 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 shatter. The end.
Yeah, there's no hope. and there's no hope even at the end. It's like according to my calculations, there's no hope. That's just season 3.
Well, it's like shatter, 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 and then let's just grind everything into dust so you can never even pretend to put it back together. That's what season 3 felt like. Anyway.
Another theme that comes up here is how like sometimes people's attempts are successful and sometimes they're not, and I really like that. Like when Raven is trying to climb the mast or whatever it is, I was really thinking that she was gonna make it and it would be like, yes, she did it. But no, she takes like 2 steps and she can't, which is realistic. But also, like, regardless of whether it's realistic or not, that's what makes the show great, because you never know if they're gonna be successful or not. So when they are successful, it actually means something, as opposed to, the characters always, there's always like a badass moment, saving it at the last minute, So Anya's death is also another example of that. It's like, yep.
Is it
sometimes
not
nothing comes out of it.
Is it not a little sexist that Raven can't do a pull-up, though? Because here's the thing. Like, we know that the actress can do pull-ups. Like, why can't Raven, the character, be a girl who can, like, pull up her own body weight, like, to the top of a tower? Like, why was that not an option? I totally see what you're saying, where it's like, no, she doesn't magically get to, like, do everything that she wants to do with her leg brace. But, like, damn, couldn't she do a pull-up?
I don't know.
No?
Could you?
Yeah, no.
Yeah, that's the point. Be able to do at least one pull-up, preferably more. That's I don't know. Like I kind of expected Raven to like
whatever.
pull out the
CrossFit
gun show.
Jesus. All right. It's CrossFit Jesus.
I'll take it. Whatever.
Now that is a term reserved for Seth Rollins. All right. So,
can I say a quick thing about Jaha and the baby on the ark?
Yeah. That weird ass
Jaha and the not baby.
Yeah.
Jaha on bath salts, basically.
Yeah, I like how I don't know if you guys noticed, but the baby, the way the baby's reactions are basically a reflection of Jaha's own mindset. Like,
wait, what?
Yeah, like throughout.
Babies don't have reactions to things other than staring at shit until it leaves their plane of sight.
No, even like long before we realize that it's an illusion, when the baby cries, that's when Jaha is worried. And when the baby is calm, that's when Jaha finds a solution. Like as soon as when he decides, the baby is crying the whole time until he decides to finally save himself and go to the ground. And then the baby quiets down. And then when there's a point where he feels like I don't remember exactly what happens, but he feels like his plan is not going to work. And then the baby starts crying again. Or I think it's when he finds that shattered helmet. That's when the baby starts crying again. And so it's really great. Like the baby is a reflection of Jaha's mind. I like that.
And why didn't he just figure it out then? That like, hey, this baby is not real
not
and clearly is just an extension of my psyche. Come on. Damn it, Jaha.
Yeah.
Oh man, Jaha.
And the chess piece, did you guys notice the chess set in season 1 that said Wells Jaha on it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's where the chess piece is coming from.
Yeah. No, I assume that's where it came from. It was Wells's chest.
So he should have figured it out because it's like, well, this is
a lot of symbolism.
Yeah.
I get that the oxygen's low, but this feels a little heavy-handed.
Yeah.
I feel like we're going deep this podcast. I hope people are appreciating how smart we think we are. So let's get into, I want to skip to the interesting tidbits, tomfoolery, and shenanigans. I added this to the run sheet because I just think sometimes there's just some fun things to say about the show. So I think something that Joe always points out is that there is tons of great earth cleavage for the Griffin women.
Jesus.
She makes me look.
Oh, I make you look. We are not watching together. We are not live chatting while we are watching together. Those eyeballs on those boobs is all you.
And then another one.
You're the gay one, Joe.
I mean, are you not watching the boobs? Like, let's just...
We're all watching the boobs at this point.
I'm a straight
Guys,
male,
watch
so
the
I watch the
boobs.
boobs. But Jenny watching the boobs. That's all you, Joe.
It's my fault.
That's on you.
I'm. So wait. So the gay is like spreading. Like, why can't you just spread your like
you're making
heterosexuality? Like, why can't you
gay.
spread your lug of boobs?
All right, so as a counterpoint to that, I low-key love Nico. He's just sex on a stick. We've already talked about that. The other thing I want to talk about, Abby, is the fucking grimiest doctor in the history of doctors. She's basically Theodoric of York, medieval barber. And if you're not familiar with who that is, that's a skit on old school 70s SNL featuring Steve Martin. But she is so fucking grimy. Like, how have people just not died
of infection? Like, I get on the arc, like, she probably sterilized, whatever, but, like, damn, like, how has no one died of infection? Like, that is the biggest actually for this entire show. Like, everyone should be dead now with, like, festering wounds.
Just, like, gangrene and, like...
It smells like almonds everywhere.
Staph infection and just, like, just shit falling off their shit, you know?
Yeah.
Suspension of disbelief, I guess. Like, she's the only doctor. What are you going to do? A gentleman's hands are never dirty.
I don't get that reference.
So it goes back to, I can't remember the guy's name. He was actually the one who suggested that doctors start washing their hands between patients. And it was at a maternity hospital. I know, like, I have these references and I don't... Possibly?
Yeah, Ignore Semmelweis? Yeah. I know his last name was Semmelweis.
The whole thing being, well, doctors shouldn't have to wash their hands because a gentleman's hands are never dirty. Meanwhile, you deliver a baby and then go deliver another baby and then both, everyone dies of sepsis.
You deliver a baby, go to the bathroom, touch your dick, deliver another baby. Just shit just tons of germs everywhere.
Actually, they came from dissection lessons.
Oh, like, they went from dead bodies to them delivering babies. So that's fine. You die of leprosy and, now we have a baby. It's full circle.
And then, Joe, I think we've kind of discussed some of your interesting tidbits. Shaheen, you don't like Mel hanging off of that cliff.
I don't like that. What is that about? Like, how many times do we have to see this? How many fucking ropes have to snap? Like... Seriously, like, how many movies have you... What is that? This like a total waste of time in episode 4, and nothing comes out of it. Mel is not an important character. Nothing happens. The only thing that happens in that stupid cliffhanger sequence is that Bellamy comes to trust Murphy because he kind of saved his life.
Yeah, but it also furthers the more moral flipping of Finn and Bellamy, because Finn's like, fuck that girl, we gotta go get Clarke, and Bellamy's like, we're not leaving her. So it does serve some purpose.
And what's up with the stupid knots? Like, why is no one watching the rope? Like, it's just like, have these people haven't watched movies on the Ark, like with ropes snapping all the time? It's just, I don't know.
I think Pike did a really bad job on his Earth Skills rope tying shit.
Why didn't they send down Monroe? Like, Monroe weighs the least. Why would you not send the lightest weight person down? Meanwhile, they send, like, Bellamy, who weighs the most out of everyone.
Yeah.
And then, like, leave, like, the scrawny people up top to, like, try to pull him up with their terrible, like, knots that are not in any way sound. Like, there's a lot of things that I have with that cliffhanger scene. It just felt really kind of unnecessary. But I get what you're saying with, like, character growth, blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, couldn't they have done, like, something else? I don't know.
Yeah.
I do like the way grounders shake hands, though. Like, the way they grab, like, the middle of your arm.
It's the forearm handshake. Did you not watch Xena?
No. I think we already established I didn't watch Xena.
I thought we established this, and then we tried to headcanon. We tried to headcanon ourselves into Shaheen watching Xena, and we couldn't. We just couldn't conceive of it.
I forget these things. Thank you for reminding me. I feel like that handshake is like handshake of. Don't they do it? They did it in Game of Thrones. Spoiler alert, everyone, season 6, mute yourselves right now. With Daenerys and Yara, they did the forearm handshake.
Yeah, they did.
So I think it's just like the technologically unadvanced people. I think that's like the like old-timey medieval handshake.
Excuse me, but wouldn't that handshake be more hygienic than how we shake hands?
It would be.
Yeah, I hate shaking people's hands now because it's like, I don't know what you've done with your hands. Like, you've gone to the bathroom and you didn't wash your hands. I know you didn't because statistically you probably didn't, you gross-ass person. So yeah, I would rather shake hands that way. I would rather just not touch another human being I'm not familiar with when I meet them. That would be nice too.
You should do that handshake though, and it'll be really weird when people are going for a normal one and you're leaning in further. It'll be great. I hope that you.
Do you not
I
watch Game of Thrones or The 100?
Every time a grounder shakes hands with a sky person, I'm kind of thinking like, one of them must be thinking, "What the fuck is this? What are you doing? You're not doing it right." It's funny, like when Nico is reaching out to Octavia, and Octavia shakes like we do because she's a sky person. And I'm kind of thinking like Nico is thinking, "What the hell is this?
Why is she touching my hand? This is weird.
Why is she doing it all wrong?
Clammy and shit.
That's awfully private and forward of you, Octavia."
That's just stupid.
So guys, let's move on to our well actuallys for these 4 episodes. All right, big well actually. How did anybody have all that time to get that art into Mount Weather? Let's be honest, folks. The bombs started dropping. There's no time to run to the Museum of Modern Art and go get Starry Night by Van Gogh.
Maybe it's all replicas.
Oh shit!
Or maybe.
Shit. I'm sorry. I just remembered something I wanted to mention about Starry Night. No, they're not replicas. They're real things. And then they had another piece of art behind Clarke that's at the Chicago Art Institute. Okay, so fun fact about Starry Night. So Van Gogh was in a mental institution when he painted Starry Night, and that Starry Night was basically the view from his cell or his studio in that mental institution. And he did many studies of that same scene over and over again. But I think it's kind of interesting that Starry Night is in Clarke's quote-unquote cell at the very beginning where she's locked in there. I think it's kind of a neat little parallel. I don't know if it was intended that way because Starry Night is super, super, super popular and everybody will recognize it. But I just think that's kind of cool. Like, oh, he's locked away in a mental institution and seeing that from his cell. And Clarke is locked away not in a mental institution, but anyway. But so, like, dudes, there's no time to get all these great works of art from all over the world into Mount Weather. There's just no time to do it.
I have your solution, all right? So Allie, in trying to like figure out what makes people, art is clearly something that is like unique to humans, right? Okay, so we've got that. She has drones. We know from now that Amazon and like other like Taco Copter can like deliver things to you via drone. So she sends out all of her drones all over the world to grab art and then drops them off at Mount Weather. Hold
up. 2 questions. First question, taco drone. Is that a real thing? Can I get tacos via drone?
It was an April Fool's thing in the Bay Area a few years ago. I know. It's like the most disappointing news.
Second thing, there is no way a drone is getting past museum security anywhere close to those works of art. No way.
She can hack. No. She can hack the system and like not set off any alarms.
There's just no way it happens. No way that one of those pieces of art is just not those, like most of them aren't completely ruined by the elements because you can't even like breathe near some of these pieces of art and not have them like disintegrate. So
this is where you draw the line in my proposition. Like this your entire thing.
Your shit's crazy, like from the jump. But I'm just trying to like go along with your crazy and poke holes into it, and not
maybe
point out that it's fucking
I forget
crazy.
his name. The lighthouse suicide guy. Maybe he Chris.
That was his task.
Lighthouse Chris. Maybe he warned people and they.
No. Lighthouse Chris. All he did was cry a lot and then kill himself. I don't think he had presence of mind to go, hey guys, save all the great works of art that humans have created. There's no time to transport shit from New York, from Chicago, from anywhere else around the world to Virginia and get into this super secure government facility. Like,
what if all of the art was being transported by train? Maybe there was like the biggest art exposition that we've ever had in this entire world, and like all of the most famous pieces that ever were on this one like boxcar, and that's how, like, and it would happen like it broke down near Mount Weather, like
y'all crazy.
And it was like a heist.
All right, I think we dwelled on this
crazy.
long enough.
Y'all crazy. Y'all crazy. So the other thing actually I have is the inconsistent editing in that fight scene, where Clarke is like laying on the ground, Anya's on top of her, and Clarke's face is just covered in a little bit of dirt. And then the next scene, you look at her completely covered in blood, no action in between those two moments that would have covered her face in blood. Like, dude, where's the continuity person on set? Seriously. Like, who edits this stuff together and goes, maybe it'll slip by people's notice. Didn't slip by my notice. I'll have you know.
The same people that edited Lex's bra strap in 307. Like, it's just, you know, you go with what footage you have.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. What about you, Shaheen? What's your will, actually?
Yeah.
I guess these are, maybe they're not really funny, but so maybe one of them is
next.
They give two different explanations for why the sky people, the Arkers, can survive or metabolize radiation. Dante suggests that the sky people also went through natural selection.
Yeah.
And Clarke kind of accepts it, and they say something about solar radiation. But then later on, in the later episode, when they're talking about when they capture Emerson, Clarke mentions that the Arkers were genetically engineered. So, and I think the second explanation, I like the second explanation better. So, because there are no, like, we never heard about the Arkers throwing out mutant babies. So, anyway, that's a that
goodness.
I had. Okay. The other one is Marie, Octavia. She keeps mispronouncing Trigida slang. She keeps saying a lake, Octavia. It's supposed to be I like, just like regular I like, you know.
I
she's Canadian.
I mean, they're so close to being like North Dakota.
Are we back to that now?
Except we love Canada. Canada. We love Canada. Love all you Canucks.
Yeah, no, I think
America's
it's because
hat.
the way David Latinized the Trigida slang, you write it like when you want to write I like, you write AILAIK. So
and it's like I like.
Yeah, but I think Marie just keeps reading it a lake, like English. Anyway,
she actually messes up when she's practicing with Lincoln. She messes up intentionally and she says something different.
Right.
Instead of, I like Octavia come Sky Crew.
Because got through clear means to have safe passage, to get through.
Yeah.
And got through clean means to commit suicide. So.
Two very different things. All right, guys. So we got to start wrapping this shit up because we went a little extra long today, but I think we got some good discussion in. So our next episode 6, we're going to be covering season 2, episodes 5 through 8. So give those a watch along with us. So let's get on to our TV shows to recommend. Joe, what you watching?
We are continuing our way through the second season of Outlander, which so the first season, like Outlander was billed to me, there's time travel and Scottish things and
sex.
Costumes and lots of sex. Yeah, I feel like when you bill a show with lots of sex, like
it should have some sex in it.
There should be like an asterisk as far as like towards the latter half of season 1 and into season 2, where sex may or may not just be sexual trauma. Like, Jesus, like the show gets dark in a hurry. But otherwise, it's still good. You're just kind of like, God, is everyone like? Maybe everyone should just be celibate. Like,
so you're
maybe...
watching soft porn, basically.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's traumatic. It's not like fun to watch. It's like, oh my God, what's
you're
happening
like,
now? Oh no.
Like you think that they're gonna like just kind of vaguely allude to something, then you're like, oh no, we're gonna get like 3 separate flashbacks this episode.
And it's gonna go deep, literally and figuratively.
Oh God.
Oh God, I just said that. Like, could Claire and Jamie just have sex again? Just could they? Like season 2, I don't. I'm not liking season 2 as much because I just it's really dark and just horrific at times.
And maybe it's my bias, but pregnant sex, I'm like meh. But anyway,
they did have pregnant sex. So
otherwise, we're rewatching Parks and Rec. So that's just good.
Best comedy ever. Parks and Rec.
It's just good.
If ever you're in a bad mood, just watch Parks and Rec.
It's so sweet.
It is sweet.
So
it's
sweet.
Sweet without being cloyingly so. It's just like so uplifting. Unless you're Jerry. Damn it, Jerry. Shaheen, are you watching anything?
No, I got nothing.
Cool. And then my show's 12 Monkeys is wrapping up its season 2 on tomorrow, Monday. Shit is so fucked up right now. I don't know how they're going to get out of it. And I hope there's a big reveal tomorrow. I just hope there's a big reveal. Also watching Killjoys. Fucking love this show. It's so much fun to watch, and they're building up the mythology of it really well. If you told me like 3 months ago that my most watched network would be Sci-Fi, I'd slap your ass and call you Sally. And now
Isn't
I'm like
that a good
watching.
thing?
It depends. But now it's like I'm watching a ton of sci-fi shows, and they're all really good or really fun. So y'all need to give stuff on Sci-Fi a chance. It's
Sci-Fi
not all
is killing
Sharknado. It's what?
Sci-Fi is killing it this season.
They are killing it.
The last year, Sci-Fi has been just it's good stuff.
Great shows. And another new show that's out, it has a lot of critics touching themselves inappropriately, is The Night Of on HBO. I am not touching myself inappropriately over this show yet. I watched the premiere ahead of its actual premiere, and the main character does so many stupid things. So let me ask you guys, if you're brought in by the police and accused of crime, what is the first thing you do?
Shut up.
Lawyer up.
Yeah, dude, don't say a fucking thing.
Well, that's the second thing you do. First, you shut up.
Pro tip, everybody. You guys, shut up and then lawyer up. If you are out there and ever questioned by the police, shut the fuck up and lawyer up. That doesn't happen in this show, and I'm just like, am I really going along with the premise that this guy is this fucking stupid? But I'm gonna give it a chance. A lot of critics are like, oh, this is the new The Wire, and I'm just like, I think
they were smarter on The Wire.
Yeah, I think the mystery of who did what is going to be the thing that really interests me more so than how the kid gets out of it. And then I want to give a shout out to a show that doesn't have a lot of eyeballs on it, but I think is really, really good. It's Halt and Catch Fire on AMC. It's 2 seasons in now, and it's going into its 3rd season. That it got a 3rd season is utterly amazing to me because, again, it's loved by critics but watched by no one. It's about the early beginnings of all this computer shit that we have in the 80s. Early beginnings of the internet, early beginnings of online gaming, early beginnings of servers and connecting computers. And it's got Lee Pace in it and some other really great actors. And this is a show that, again, retooled a bit in its 2nd season and got so much better. And it started to focus a little bit more on the very capable women on the show who are really good at business and computers and shit. So if you're looking for an interesting show to watch, I strongly recommend Halt and Catch Fire. So again, a reminder to everybody, thanks for listening. Please, again, tweet to us and follow us on Twitter at May We Geek Again. Remember, we're giving a DVD of season 3 away. If you follow and retweet our tweets that have the little graphic in it that tell you to retweet and follow, it'll be apparent. And also follow us on or like our page on the Facebooks. So until next time, guys, this was fun. May we geek again.
Take it easy, guys.